everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the R&R Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Joins, along with my super salty co-host, Randy Watkins.
Hey!
So we were...
Welcome to my radio voice. I'm coming at you from the live studio of my kitchen.
I think this is when you need a jalopy horn, you know, that... and a slide whistle.
Woo, woo!
Welcome back to another fascinating episode of sports. It's been a crazy week. A ton to talk about.
Lots happened this week. I didn't really pay much attention what was kind of going on. I got caught up today, but yeah, a lot happened.
All right, well, I say there's no time like the present, so how about we go ahead and hop right in. Let's go ahead and hop right into that first story. I'll get us started off and pop that podcast cherry. It is now official. We have just been subject to the worst rated Olympics ever.
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 That's saying the worst ever. How sad.
Viewership is down 24% compared to the Sochi Olympics. And overall, 29% fewer viewers. So,
I don't know. I just felt like people were disinterested this year.
All right, I can't imagine why. Maybe because it's the boring as heck Winter Olympics. Where, here's the deal. The big story was USA men's curling wins gold. If the big story is curling, I'm sorry. That's not a good event.
No. A chunk of ice down a chunk of ice to see how close you can get it on the chunk of ice.
Yeah.
Well,
that being said, congratulations to the Great White North, the Norwegians, on their sufficient victory, as well as Germany for medal count, reminding the world that when it comes to winter sports, you have to be European and white, or they don't care. So,
so the Norwegians did finish with the most medals, right?
Yeah.
They were just ahead of the whole time. They crushed everything.
Color me shocked that a nation that is in snow most of the year would do well at a quote-unquote Winter Olympics.
Where did Canada finish?
I don't know. Let's see here. Total medal
where
count.
did Canada finish, guy?
Jeez. Canada came in third with total medal counts, and we came
that's
in.
where I thought they were.
We came in fourth. Canada had 11 golds, but in total they had 29 medals. But Norway had the most at 39. Second place was 31, so they had 8 more medals than Germany.
Wow. I was thinking about this earlier, and I think a lot of it just has to do with none of our athletes have like the pedigree of, say, someone like Michael Phelps.
Yeah. You know what I think really hurt it too, Randy, if I'm honest? They didn't allow professional hockey players to participate in the Olympics.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, did you not? Oh, you didn't know that. Yeah, no. So we've had NHL guys. NHL guys have been able to compete in the past. Like originally they couldn't, and then they could, and now they can't again. So,
who came up with that?
Well, remember, the NBA players weren't allowed to compete in the Olympics for the longest time, and then that's when the gosh darn dream team was put together, and the United States crushed.
I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. I had not heard that before, admittedly, but I was looking for hockey to be on prime time, and I don't recall. I never got to even see a game. I don't know when NBC put it on, but I mean, I'm watching it 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it's not on at all. I mean, I don't know when they expect people to watch it.
I would say from what I did watch, you didn't miss much. It was like the good fundamentals hockey league. It's like watching an NBA divisional game. Not an NBA divisional game, an NBDL game.
Yeah, so what are they, like college all-star
team?
A
lot of college.
Is that basically what it was?
Yeah, a lot of college players.
If the pros couldn't be in there, I mean, half of our pros are Canadian anyways, aren't they?
If by that you mean in the NHL, yes.
Yes.
we're not the only country involved in the NHL, Randy. I know it's hard to say, to realize that. And if Roger Goodell has his way, the NFL will be a world league. World Football League? I swear to God, I know Roger Goodell, is trying to legitimize things more and more, but World Football League totally sounds like something Vince McMahon would come up. You see, it's going to be a World Football League.
A quest for total domination.
I should say, North Carolina native Vince McMahon.
Yeah, that's right. He was North Carolina native. I don't think he gives a crap about North Carolina. I don't think he's really proud.
I'm pretty sure it's the home of his inbred, highly abusive family. So I don't think he has any intentions of ever coming back. I'm just, North Carolina's known for a few things. One, we're known for college basketball. That's a nice thing. But the redneck things we're known for, NASCAR, moonshine women, Vince McMahon, and competitive, quote-unquote, competitive wrestling.
Are we going to talk about the Daytona 500 on this podcast?
Actually, I don't have it on there at all because does it really matter at this point? All the cars are exactly the same.
I can't tell you the last time I watched a NASCAR race. Maybe when I was a kid and I liked Jeff Gordon, but I could care less about it now.
Yeah. See, I always got picked on growing up being a Jeff Gordon fan because they're like, oh, you don't like Dale Earnhardt? Well, I'm like, well, he's dead. And they're like, well, you don't like Dale Jr.? And it's like, I think it's really stupid to like somebody just because they were born from somebody else. You know what I mean?
Well, I did see that Danica Patrick wrecked again in breaking news.
Oh.
Big surprise. She's... I looked up on the stats on her, and she's never won a race in NASCAR ever.
No,
and I don't think she's ever even finished in the top 10, maybe even in the top 20. Her average finish was like in the 20s.
She has had a top 10. I think she had a second place finish, but I don't know, man. All credit to her. She just didn't get it done. Not to hate on her. I just think it's funny because she just wrecks like every race. She's just like, screw you guys, I'm taking you all out. Yeah, Randy, we are tiptoeing into sexist waters, and I don't want anybody to accuse us of sexism. That's not what I came here to do. But I will say that it's better for the sport for Danica Patrick to be on the sideline.
Hey, I'm all for women's rights, just so you know. Women can do anything, but I don't think she represented women very well by wrecking every single race.
Yeah.
There will be more.
We've technically only covered one story, so got to move on to the next one.
How about your boy Blake Bortles, who you've been talking him up all the last 3 months.
Spite your tongue, Watkins.
About how he was gone. They're bringing Eli Manning in because Tom Coughlin is there.
I don't know if you read the article that I sent you, or not an article. It's just all the stats on his contract. But a fine minutia of his contract that I will say is that the Jaguars do still have a trade option up to and including the draft. So they may not have to pay any of that. We shall see. But the fact that he got, what was it, $54 million for 3 years? Something like that?
That's cheap, dude. That's cheap. I mean, under a $20 million quarterback.
Randy, it's Blake Bortles. It's Blake. Cheap? Okay, he is not going to get Joe Flacco money. He's not going to get Garoppolo money. But that is ridiculous.
Last year, and not this year, but last year, I mean, he was on pace to put up some big numbers. I thought he had some great games, and I really thought he was going to turn it around. But, this year he did really struggle.
Anyways, I don't know what else to say on that. I just obviously, I thought that they weren't going to be doing anything with him. But I guess they wanted to secure him in the event they couldn't get anybody else to go to Jacksonville.
They're just so focused on defense. I mean, they built a stout defense. Obviously, they just wanted to shore up the position, and no matter who was there. I wouldn't be surprised if they draft a quarterback, though, honestly.
Yeah, I don't doubt it either. Well, I'll tell you why I think they went ahead and paid him. It's looking like Eli's actually going to be the starting quarterback for the Giants again.
Yeah, I did read that earlier today.
Oh my God! So they literally screwed his record of consecutive starts, and then keep him. What, Randy?
Prove a point. That's all it was. Nobody's invincible, not even a Manning.
If I was a record keeper, I think there is an argument to be made that Eli's streak continued or would have continued had it not been for spite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're in Phillip Rivers' camp, You're like, screw that. Now I've got the longest active streak.
Do you think those guys really care about those streaks?
I think, oh yeah, absolutely. And definitely since Brett Favre had the longest running one for the longest time, the guys who do it, who don't miss games, absolutely. I absolutely think it's important to them. Look at how much Eli acted like a petulant child around it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'd care. It would bother the heck out of me. It's like, let's say you didn't miss, or rather, let's say you actually were dumb enough to go to every single school day of the year. You had perfect attendance. Wouldn't you like that recognition at the end of the year if you were the one who made a point to be there every day?
Yeah. Dude, I completely forgot that Bortles was a first-round pick. He was number 3 overall. Who else? I gotta see who else was in that draft because I love going back and looking and see who else they could have picked.
Yeah, it is, man. You could write not just novel after novel about bad picks in NFL drafts and guys who were taken way high who just didn't turn into anything. But that's the big the big bait with a college player. You know, they've got these insane stats, but then the question is it really the player or are they a product of their system? You know, we were talking about in the last episode about Tim Tebow being a product of the system. You know, he had bad mechanics, but he was a physical specimen, and they were able to make that physical specimen win 2 national championships.
I was looking back at that draft. It was a very, very thin at that QB position. I mean, he was the only, actually, Johnny Manziel, and we know where he's at now. He was the only other first rounder. Actually, Teddy Bridgewater was at the end of the first round, and, you know, he was out the entire year. Looks like he's going to become a free agent.
Yep.
Derek Carr in there, which he's been decent, but he really struggled this past year.
Yeah, because guys wouldn't block for him. He got his back broken.
Jimmy G, and that's the first 2 rounds. So very, very thin draft. I think that's why Bortles went as high as he did.
Yeah. You know, I hate to say it. You look at drafts and the teams that do well, and I get it. Every team has to have a good quarterback, but people put way, way too much cost and interest in quarterbacks so high in a draft because there are a lot of other key players who will service your team for much longer than many of these quarterbacks wind up doing. For God's sakes, you know, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, these guys were all low-round picks, 3rd or lower.
Yep.
There are good quarterbacks down there.
Yeah, you see a lot of teams going offensive line, defensive line up that high. That's why you never see safeties, or usually, unless a corner is just like the best player in college football, they really go with the big men in the trenches. And once in a while, I mean, I think back to, you know, the RG3 draft, it was him and Andrew Luck.
Yep.
You know, and a couple years.
They're talking about Andrew Luck not being with the Colts anymore.
Which is insane to me. I mean, there must be something really wrong with his arm.
Well, and people keep saying, well, he can't stay healthy. Are you kidding me? A year ago, people were talking about Andrew Luck like he was the next coming of Christ.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, like you said, there must be something very wrong. And if there is something very wrong, what a loss.
It's a league of what have you done for me lately, and that's really what it boils down to. The guy was out all year long, and the fans are crying about it. They had a terrible season, and now they're calling for, a change. It's crazy to me too. I agree with you. I think he's easily one of the top 10 quarterbacks when he's in the game, if not top 5. The guy's got a hell of an arm.
The reason why they were losing games when he was quarterback was not him. He like Peyton Manning was scoring crazy amounts of points in a game. It was, again, the classic problem you have in Indianapolis. There's like 2 rules to life. Never start a land war in Asia, and then the other one is Indianapolis will never have a defense.
They don't. They never have.
Never had a coach for it.
They just struggle. They really just struggle, and they've struggled in the running game too.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, they got Trent Richardson. You remember that year they got him from the Browns?
I do.
That was, made the Browns look like idiots giving him up, and then they immediately look like geniuses because he flopped when he got to Indy.
Oh my gosh. All right. Moving on. Next story. LeBron James this last week stated that the NCAA is corrupt and that the NBA should really create a new farm system for upcoming players that's not dependent on the college
system. That's such a misrepresentation. They are not corrupt. How dare the king?
It is interesting that he would take that position considering he was never at their mercy.
I think and that's part of what he said was like, thank God. I mean, what would these universities give up for LeBron James trying to come up to the schools?
Yeah. On that note, though, I was listening to the Adam and Joe show today, and they had Stephen A. Smith on, who was poignantly sober for a moment. Actually, I thought he was reserved. He was intelligent. He wasn't screaming. They do a new segment on the Dan Le Batard show, who I'm not a big fan of, but they'll like cut to like, well, let's check in with First Take and see how it's going, and all they play are screams. Which is kind of how I feel about that show. But anyways, Stephen A. Smith did say something that I actually kind of like, and I want to see what you thought. He proposed allowing high schoolers to go directly into the NBA, but if you choose to go play college basketball, that you have to play there for 2 years. So it's a 2-year commitment to go if you do decide to elect for the NBA draft after that. Or rather, the NBA draft.
I like it. I mean, you're coming out of high school. You think you're that good that you can go straight to the NBA? I mean, first of all, the NBA
Kobe Bryant did
teams,
it. Kevin Garnett did it. LeBron James did it.
And they are anomalies, right? Complete anomalies. I mean, how many kids go to the NBA every year that are never seen again? I like the idea of a farm system. Back to LeBron's point, I really do. I do think they need that like minor league baseball because so many kids go overseas. I mean, look at the ball kids. They're in Lithuania. Geez. They could be playing right now in the NBA for the Lakers.
I will tell you, in high school, I've got to tell you, in high school, the best high school basketball player I knew was of Lithuanian descent. He was so baller with a name that nobody could pronounce.
Was he taller than everyone? It just
no.
Like
He was a point guard. He was super short. He was shorter than me, but he had incredible ball handling skills on and off the court.
Well, I heard the other day that Marvin Bagley's technically a senior in high school. He skipped his 12th grade to go to Duke. I never did that.
That's crazy.
But he's still a senior in high school, and I mean, he looks like a 30-year-old man.
Oh my God, Randy, he's not the same species as us, and I mean that in a complimentary way. He is literally the next level of evolution. He's beyond us. He no longer needs the tethers that bind him to the surface of this planet. He's otherworldly.
I mean, I don't often agree with Stephen A. Smith. I will admit that. But I do agree that there needs to be – if you go to college, you stay in. I think it honestly should be 3 years like it is baseball.
Like it is baseball. And I would play with that too because think about the product of a player that would spend 3 years in college. I agree. I like the standard, and the way he framed it, which is how I agree, is that, listen, if you can be drafted, if you can go to war, if you can vote, and you can die for your country, you should be able to take your talents and make money off them to provide for your family. In all other purposes of your life, you are considered an adult who makes decisions for yourself. But in the marketplace, you are not allowed to cash in on that.
Right.
And I actually like this because I think you'll see a lot less under-the-table kind of payments like you do in college now, because the guys who are that good, who can be wooed by that money, can just go to the NBA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. And you'll have less one-and-dones, obviously, because they're going to have to stay either 3 or 4 years. You know, you either care about your education or you don't. Yeah. And, you know, I really wish they would understand that there's going to be life after basketball. You can't play basketball forever, and you do need, you know, and that, you know, that's another subject. But, you know, if you choose, you know, the degree would be there, and the education is priceless.
And I'll tell you what, if a guy wants to go to the NBA, and even if he only plays for 3 years, listen, the money you're making in NBA in 3 years, that's more than enough to pay for a college education. Mm-hmm. For God's sakes, it's enough money in 3 years in the NBA. You can buy an auto dealership and then make money for the rest of your life.
Well, LeBron was quoted as saying, "I do know what 5-star athletes bring to a campus, both in basketball and in football. I know how much these college coaches get paid. I also know how much these colleges are gaining off these kids. And I've always heard the narrative that they get a free education, but you guys are not bringing me on campus to get an education. You guys are bringing me on to help you get to a Final Four or to a national championship." I mean, you can't disagree with what he says.
Yeah, no, I understand it. But then, of course, you do see the players who, you know, actually walk away with real degrees and not just quote-unquote studies degrees.
Yeah, agreed. Real degrees that they can do something with. And I applaud that.
I agree, too. You know, it's always nice when you see that. That's when you see a guy who's like, oh, wow, he's a virtuoso pianist and he's a biochemical engineer from Duke. And you're like, what the hell? Jeez. And he was on a team that won the ACC championship? What the hell? You freak. What's his face? Who played? He was the big blonde Russian villain from Rocky.
Drago. But what is his name in real life?
I'm pulling him up.
Gosh, he was also in The Expendables.
Of course. Dolph Lundgren. Of course, it's
Dolph Lundgren. That's right.
So, you know, he plays this big meathead, super muscular, looks like an idiot. So he dated Grace Jones. He has multiple college degrees. He speaks like 6 languages. You know, plays a couple of instruments. I mean, he really is like one of those, like, wow, you are a physical specimen. You are legitimately better than me. You're not just some meathead. Anyways, in other news, hit us with that news on Des Bryant.
So the catch was from 2014, or actually the lack of a catch was ruled a completed pass by the NFL this week. So what are your thoughts? What's your take on that?
In news that's 4 years too late. It's because the NFL is trying to figure out how they're going to rule a catch, because it's gotten to the point where, Randy, and I saw it with everybody I watched games with this season, they'd be like, that's a catch, and then it'd be taken away, and then I'd have to get into the new fine minutia of, well, you actually have to maintain control on the way to the ground after making a football move, and they're like, what? It looked like a catch to me, and I'm like, I agree with you, it looked like a catch to me too. I'm just telling you what the letter of the law is, and it's like, that turns fans off, because I'll give you, like, the casuals that'll watch with me, like my wife and my friend Chris, who's not in, Chris of Chrisco Industries here. Tune into some of our other shows anytime, please. Consider donating on Patreon. But Chris, who enjoys watching football, but he's not an avid fan. So he's like, what the hell was that? That looked like a catch to me. And so, you know, the casual fan, the casual observers, it really turns them off, because what little understanding they thought they had of football is now thrown into question.
You know, I think it's been made more complex of an issue than it really needs to be. In my opinion, just just take the ground out of the equation. And if you go back and look at the video of the Des Bryant catch, he maintained possession all throughout, and even the ball that got tipped up, I mean, he was right there at the end to catch it.
He was holding on to it the entire time. Yeah, I'm glad we watched it again before the show because it put it in a new light. Now, in fairness, we were watching the NFL Films version that's shot in 4K high, it's high definition and amazing and nice incredible frame rate. So it's like, you can really slow it down if you need to. And but honest to goodness, that was a big catch and it was right by the goal line.
Now, I will admit, when I was watching that game live, it's funny how times change and I remember watching that live and going, no way, that was not a catch. The ground affected the ball. But now fast forward, 3 years later, 3 seasons later, that was a catch. I mean, you have to give it to the guy. And that changed the outcome of that game completely.
It did. And like I said, I think the lens that you and I look at it through is, one, you're a Redskins fan, so you hate the Cowboys. And I just hate the Cowboys. And so it's easy in the moment to be so wrapped up like, no, there's no way. And you convince yourself a little more that it wasn't a catch. But also at the time, per the rules, it wasn't.
Right. If it touches the ground, then it was if it touches the ground, but his hands are under it. Oh, then it's there's so many shades of gray. Just start getting rid of the shades of gray. Make it a black and white thing. It either was a catch or it wasn't, and just keep it as simple as possible. Yeah. And that's really what they need to do. And I know that's easier said than done, but get rid of all those shades of gray because you made a great point. People like Chris, people that enjoy watching football but aren't just super crazy about watching every game every Sunday. Yeah. Keep them coming back and quit with more penalties and more reviews and just let the guys play. Right. I think that's the most frustrating thing about where the NFL has gone to is everything's a freaking penalty, everything's defensive holding, everything's illegal contact, everything's a legal shift. Okay, and there's just so many penalties in a freaking game, so many commercials that people are just sick of it. Just let them play.
There's a reason why, and I think that's a reason why NBA basketball ratings are up as much as they are, because it's a game that doesn't stop. There's a fast pace. There's a lot of action.
They let them play.
I'll tell you what, that's one of the reasons why, honestly, I freaking love Aussie rules football. It is fast. It is hard. It's quick scoring. It's exciting. They've got rabid fans. If anybody at home listening, I got to tell you, go to YouTube and find you some links on Aussie rules football. It's like rugby meets soccer meets American football on steroids. Man, it's a fun time. I wish we had somewhere to play here in the States.
It's funny you mentioned that because, and I think of it a lot like rugby. It's a lot, but I think you can actually kick the ball to pass it. I think, right? Is that the difference?
Well, you run down the field and you dribble the ball, but yeah, the only way to score, there is no touchdowns. The only way to score is to kick the ball through the uprights.
Oh,
and there's 4 posts, and if you kick it between the 2 middle posts, it's a certain number of points. If you kick it through the 2 outer posts, it's a certain number of points, and then there's more points if you kick it from a greater distance. I don't know, man. It's really exciting. Anytime I can find it, I like watching it.
I remember and I haven't watched much Aussie rules football, so that'll be my homework this weekend. But I have watched rugby. In the first rugby game I ever saw, the guy was on the bottom of the scrum, and some guy in his face was just looking up to the sky, and some dude just stomped on his face with his cleats. I was like, oh my God, talk about barbaric.
I have a personal request. This weekend, my brother-in-law plays his first competitive rugby game. Please, dear God, say a prayer for him. Because I'm afraid.
I mean, can he take a hit?
I mean, he's a good boy, but man, you play with people who don't screw around. That's how you dislocate a shoulder and get your teeth knocked out. They say, there's less concussions in rugby because they don't wear helmets. Yes, but there's more torn rotator cuffs and teeth knocked out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, on to some news where nobody's teeth gets knocked out of their head. Russell Wilson, as I mentioned before, actually reported to Yankees spring training camp this last week, and basically didn't do anything but did some batting practice, hit a couple home runs, and people lost their mind.
It's freaking batting practice. You know every pitch that's coming to you. Hey, give me a fastball right down the middle. I'm
right
gonna
where
hit
you
it as
want
hard
it.
as I can. Yeah, come on. That's such a joke to me. And I think you're right. I mean, he admit, I did read some articles. He's like, look, this is not a PR stunt. If you know me, this is not a stunt. I've always wanted to do this. I love baseball. Yada 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 yada. It's BS. Okay, throw me some fastballs down the middle. Let's get everybody out here, and I'm going to jack some home runs. Now, I'll give him credit. The guy can hit. I mean, he did hit six of them.
He can hit a ball when it's right where you want it. But remember, he can't hit the major league curveball. That's why he's not playing in the major leagues. Yeah, it's real easy to hit the batting practice. But I want to paint a picture for you, Randy, if I can for a moment.
Sure.
Imagine former NC State football coach Tom O'Brien sitting in a warm study. There's a fire roaring. He's sitting in his leather chair, smoking jacket on, a snifter of brandy in his left hand. He decides to ease into his evening and flicks on ESPN, and there is Russell Wilson, smug as he can be, grinning ear to ear, talking about the 6 home runs he hit, and the snifter just shatters into a million pieces in his claws.
I thought he was going to say that he threw it into the fireplace.
Now, since he likes fine brandy, it would burst into flame, of course, if he did that. Anybody who's an NC State football fan already knows that story. Those of you that don't, I'm not going to waste the time here. But
I don't get it. Like, so many things that you need to be doing in the off season, especially for the way the Seahawks finished the year, not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think that they just kind of show. I mean, I wonder how his teammates feel about that. You know what I mean?
I think they're too worried about their own contract extensions to say anything. Because they're blowing up that team.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't disagree with you on that one. I think it's somewhat of a stunt. Maybe not completely all a stunt, but definitely you've got some PR-ness in there.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, man. Like I like the Yankees, and like if you had an opportunity to go do batting practice with the Yankees, you'd go do batting practice with the Yankees. But let's face it, he's Russell Wilson. He could really figure out a way to go do batting practice with the Yankees anytime he wanted.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. They would love to have him, man. Just come in for a day. I mean, they would love the press too. I mean, come on, it's the Yankees, for God's sake.
If rinky-dink ESPN reporters can go do batting practice, I'm pretty sure they can figure something out for 2-time Super Bowl appearance, 1-time Super Bowl winner Russell Wilson.
Dangerous. Which is the top? Wasn't he the top fantasy QB this year?
I don't know. You would know, not me. I clearly don't know what I'm doing with fantasy football.
I think he was. I was trying to go through at the end of the year and kind of look at end of year stats and whatnot, and I want to say he was top QB. We'll have to fact check that one.
I'm surprised. Yeah, can we get a fact checker? Oh, I almost said fat checker.
Fat checker.
Can we get a fat checker in here?
A fat checker that's a fact checker.
Oh God. That's an ist of some kind, but I don't know what it is when you're against people who are morbidly obese. Fattest? I don't know. Like IST instead of EST? Something like that. All right. Moving on. Randy, I have a question for you, because we've reached that time of the year when teams start doing a particular behavior to improve their odds in regards to the draft. And I'm speaking, of course, of tanking. What are your thoughts on teams trying to improve their draft order, essentially, by intentionally losing games?
I think it's garbage. I mean, I'll tell you, speaking of fantasy football, I hated my friends who used to do that crap at the end of the year so they could get the first round pick the following year, or they would trade away their entire team, just dump it.
Poor performance should not be rewarded, especially in fantasy.
No, and I feel like it happens in football too. You know, you have teams there, and look at the Browns last year. Are you telling me a pro NFL football team could not win a single game? I mean, I don't know. I hate the idea of it, honestly. I don't like tanking. I think it represents, a bad trend to children watching TV and looking up to their idols. And when they're throwing games like that intentionally, I think it's a bad idea.
Most upsettingly, think about what it does to season ticket holders. Your team has given up contending and has given up trying to win and providing entertainment. Let's face it. At the end of the day, what you're paying for with a ticket to a sporting event is entertainment. Yes, there's sports. Yes, it's competition. But what's you there as a fan, why you buy a ticket, is entertainment. And that would be like consistently going to see a play that they stop the play in the middle of the show and then just play checkers, but you keep going back.
When I've been to NBA games too, a lot of it is just entertainment value. They're shooting off T-shirts in the cannon, and the dancers are out there. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like a sport. Sometimes it feels like pure entertainment.
I want Jersey Mike's to have the balls to have a Philly cheesesteak cannon at a game.
Yes.
Can you imagine how excited you would be if a hot sandwich wrapped in tinfoil was shot in the crowd for you to catch? I'm way more interested in that than a T-shirt.
That's the greatest
idea.
I
will murder someone to catch that sandwich.
Make sure you throw a fountain drink in there too, so you can wash it down.
And people, I know the people who I can already see like, it's all loose stuff, it wouldn't matter. Obviously, we've thought that out. What it is it's layers. See, it's layers of aluminum foil. Layers of it. And there's a thin lattice work, almost like duct tape. In fact, it's a lot like duct tape because it is. But imagine a thin netting of duct tape that holds it all together.
That just reeks of some 7-year-old kid not paying attention is going to get hit in the head with a hot sandwich. He's going to be scarred for life. It's going to be on the mantle. Be like, you remember when little Johnny got hit in the head with that Philly cheesesteak?
You know what, Randy? Some lessons are tough lessons, but the earlier you learn them, the better. And if that kid catches an elbow to the face because he got in the way of a man who wants a hot, delicious sandwich, that's his fault, not mine. That's just survival of the fittest, Randy. That's all I'm saying.
I would love to see somebody dive for a Philly cheesesteak. That would be awesome.
Yeah, watch. All you have to do is throw one near me.
People don't fight for T-shirts, but people will fight for food.
Randy, I gave up meat for Lent. I'm dreaming of like beef and bacon. And I had blood work last week, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, your protein levels are quite low. Have you changed your diet recently?" I said, "Yes, I'm not eating meat." And they're like, "Oh, well, maybe you should." Maybe you should change that. All my numbers in that range have always been super high. Iron count, red blood cell count, all of that super duper high. Now, not so much.
I applaud your tenacity.
I can feel my eyes slowly drifting to the side of my head, Randy. I'm becoming prey, not predator. All right, I know you're dying to do it, so get to that final story of the day. Oh no, not final story. Second to final story. My apologies.
Oh, John Calamari talking about the players in the NCAA need to make money off their likeness. So we talked about this last week as a hot topic. You disagreed.
And by hot topic, you don't mean that emo store at the mall.
No, I mean one that you disagreed with and made some very good points, and I definitely get that. It was interesting to see Calamari, however you want to say the guy's name.
Calapari.
He said that these kids deserve advisors as they're moving through this process. But the way it's done now, it's an issue. There's a lot of things. I think at the end of the day, the things that need to begin to change. The NCAA is just really slow moving, and it's not going to be perfect for every program. But he suggested that change is necessary.
I will give you something, Randy. I've thought a lot about it this week, and I ultimately do not have problems with students, college players, having representation, because that's what a fair market should be. I don't have a problem if a player wants to have an agent. Ultimately, I think that would be beneficial. These guys are making big decisions, and having the benefit of an agent helping to guide them, someone who's been through it before that doesn't have an innate investment. Think of it like a court system. An agent is essentially their lawyer, and more often than not, agents usually are attorneys. But in a court, you wouldn't go to court without an attorney. So I will give
Unless
you that.
you're Charles Manson.
Well, arrest advantage. Are you mad? Do you feel blame?
I love that video.
We've totally lost everyone, but it just, oh my God. If you want a little chuckle, go look up Charles Manson, Do You Feel Blame, and see the craziest 30 seconds you've ever seen.
It's hilarious. Thank you to Last Podcast on the Left for that.
Jeez. All right. But I will say, with this argument, it would mean more if it wasn't from a serial cheater, Randy.
I know.
Oh my God. It's like when you sent this to me, my knee-jerk reaction was, of course John Calamari finds this way. He's had 2 series of Final Four appearances stricken from the records. Yeah, I really think players need to be able to be paid. Oh, really, Mr. One and Done?
Yeah, but he still has a lot of pedigree in the sport, and a lot of pull. I think he makes good point, and by saying that it's their name and it's their likeness, it's not ours, it's theirs. They should be able to make money.
It's funny. There was already one case about this. Do you remember that EA used to make an NCAA game?
Yeah. It was. I remember. Was it Bill Walton that was involved in that lawsuit?
May have been.
I want to say it was. I want to say it was Bill Walton, or an old NBA player that was involved in that.
But they were
and they won, right?
Yes, they did. But the problem is there were so many people being paid out that everybody basically got nothing. And at the end of the day, when the NCAA rakes in billions, it's like, a $300 million settlement. Okay. Oh, sorry.
They were using their likeness without giving any credit to them. I mean, yeah, well, you're basically playing with the character.
They were using their name and their stats and their numbers.
Yeah.
Because of the deal they struck with the NCAA. So in that regard, it's good that they won. It's just I think some of the things we talked about tonight could make this much better. It does seem to be that a majority of the corruption seems to be coming from college basketball.
So, okay, so you're a smart businessman. You're driving down the road and you see your face on a competitor's realty sign. What do you do? What do you think about that? Exactly. It's because it's your likeness, right? It's your face.
However,
it's your moneymaker.
In fairness, this is not a great state for that, because there is such a thing as fair use. But you can. I mean, think about attack ads, political attack ads that you see. They use people's likenesses there.
Oh yeah.
So it's the states that do have protections for people's likeness are New York and California. Oh, shocker! The major film industry locations would have those protections. So, all right.
I mean, I think he just makes a great point that there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons, and I think if you bring up a good point that if you have someone to help these guys manage it, whether it's a financial advisor, whether it's a financial planner, say this is your future, you're getting a small stipend or you're getting some money for what you bring to the university. It's up to you to manage it ultimately, but we're going to help you along the way. I don't think there's a perfect system. I really don't, but I think there's a start. I mean, you have to start somewhere.
Well, you know me, I'm a big I'm a big believer in the free market. And so I think if you took steps to allow players at 18 to not have to go to college, and you rewarded those who did stay at college and allowed them to have representation, I think that would be a more meaningful change. Because I think if what you did was, well, we're just going to keep things the way they are and pay players and all this kerfuffle,
right?
I think that's a great way to destroy the system. My money still is on the NCAA being gone in 10 years. I know I make a lot of bold predictions on this show. Some of them right, some of them not. I'm more than man enough to admit when I'm wrong. But I still feel quite strongly about that. I do not think we will see the NCAA operating in the same capacity that they are now in 10 years' time. They may technically still exist, but is it really meaningful if nobody's following them, if the Big Five, aren't a part of the NCAA?
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Start their own World Federation Basketball League.
Thanks, Vince McMahon. We're going to call it the World Basketball Federation.
WBL.
And just like college sports, every match is rigged. Boom, 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 boom. Sorry, Wichita State. We don't give a crap about corn. Bye.
Oh, man. Speaking of our last college basketball story, we talked about the U of A last week, the Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah, man.
And Coach Sean Miller being on tape for his star freshman getting $100,000. A big recruit
move.
just pulled out.
Yeah. So Shaquille O'Neal's son, right?
Yeah. Which I don't know much about him, but I do know that he's in the top 50. I do believe he's a 5-star recruit. And he pulled out, basically over that scandal and decided he's going to UCLA.
Yeah, that's a good call. Oh, you mean he's not going to LSU like his daddy? Can't imagine why he wouldn't be doing that in the weakest division in basketball in the NCAA. Oh, the SEC, what do you know?
Yeah, you would think he would pull up a power conference.
Well, Pac-10, I guess, technically counts as the Big Five. Or Pac-12, yeah. But still. I mean, if you really want to, you really want to make a mark in college basketball, it's in the ACC, baby.
It really is. I'm proud to say that. I mean, just watching the games this week, I mean, you have Virginia Tech upsetting Virginia.
Yeah, well, and you got Virginia sneaking by Louisville. I mean, they needed heroics at the end of that game.
And my Tar Heels lost. They lost to Miami.
I was not going to bring that up. I didn't want to rub salt in the wound.
It's okay.
Now that you mentioned it, your boy hit a game winner or a game tire, and then they answered with an absolute game winner.
Man,
what a heartbreaker!
I will say, and it is college basketball, and the game played on, but if you go back and watch that, the kid walked. He took 3 steps before that
Randy,
shot.
Do not give me that BS with all of the quote-unquote dunks and layups that take 5 steps. I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it.
I know they're not going to call it, but a fact is a fact. He did walk and made,
I knew you were salty. Speaking of which, we got a little who you got, but I do want to say one last thing on the University of Arizona situation. So remember, Coach Sean Miller supposedly on tape admitting this bribe thing, right? That was the evidence, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's refusing to step down. He's sticking to his guns. He is going to fight this when apparently they have evidence. So he must seem to think that they don't have the evidence. All I got to say is it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
So I know they had a game this past weekend, and I know that he was taken out of that game.
He said
what has happened since then? Do you know?
Supposedly he's got support, either of the university or the alumni, but there's somebody who's backing him. So I don't know, man. I think that's a bad move, but we'll see. Or maybe he's just trying to call their bluff. Like, I don't think you actually recorded me. But when the FBI is like, when things like that come to light, they wouldn't say it if they didn't have it.
Yeah, I'm reading. That's exactly what he's doing. He's completely denying it now. So, that I think I can see how that's going to shake down.
Yeah, not great. But so for our who you got, buddy boy, tomorrow night, the Battle of the Blues.
Oh yeah,
D-Town. It is also senior night. Carolina lost at their senior night versus Miami in a fluky end there. But this will be Grayson Allen's last home game. It's a big senior night for the Blue Devils this year.
Thank God.
We will be,
Goodbye,
of course. Grayson. What's that?
I said, thank God. Goodbye, Grayson. Ugh, that guy. Mr. Trip himself, come on.
What about Tyler Hansborough throwing bows? I don't want to hear it, Randy.
Hey,
I do not want to hear it.
Oh,
by the way, where's Tyler Hansborough right now?
I think he's not in the NBA anymore. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think it's. I think technically he is in the NBA, but I'm just wondering. Okay.
Yeah, he was in Charlotte last I heard. I don't know where he went from there. But
that's where good players go to die, including Michael Jordan.
Yes. But can't question this is the greatest rivalry in sports, and I'm so excited for the game Saturday night. I hate playing in Cameron because it's just such a dominating presence.
Hostile environment?
Yeah, a hostile environment. And both teams are coming off of a loss, right? Your Dukies are coming off of a loss too.
They won last night.
They played last night?
Yeah, man.
I'm sorry. They lost. Didn't they lose a couple days ago?
I don't remember their exact schedule, man. I don't remember.
They lost this past week too. They lost to
We beat Syracuse, we beat Clemson, we beat Virginia Tech, we beat Louisville.
Yeah, I stand corrected.
I see. Oh, I see.
Virginia Tech. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Virginia. Yeah, we've played them twice. So Virginia Tech beat us.
That's right. The last second shot, the putback shot.
Yeah. They beat us by 1 point on the 26th. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the most impressive of our wins was against Clemson. That was a pretty good win against a good squad.
It was. Yeah.
That's the problem with the ACC is that you've got teams that don't mean anything, that can't contend. Like Virginia Tech has a loss to Duke and a loss to Virginia, but they also have a win to Virginia and a win to Duke. They split the season.
That's not a problem. That's the beauty of the ACC. Anyone can win at any given time.
And I agree with you. I guess what I mean is that's why nationally people say well, your teams, Carolina and Duke have 5 or 6 losses apiece or whatever. And the reason for it is that's the reason why I used to hate Maryland is Maryland would not beat anybody, but Maryland would spend weeks training to beat Carolina and Duke. And then they would, and people would be like, wow, look at these giant killers. And it's that's all they do is try and beat these teams. They lost to, P-Dunk Nowhere Kentucky team that nobody's ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Like Western Kentucky Law University School. And it's they lost to them and then they beat Duke? What the?
And Virginia Tech beat the number 1 team in the conference too, Virginia recently. So, anything is possible, I guess. And it's cool to see that.
But do we even have to answer for the who you got? Do we even have to answer for the who you got?
Yeah, exactly. You know who I got, baby. I got my Tar Heels all day long. But I will say, Marvin Bagley is back this time. Okay, he wasn't in the last game, right?
I don't know, man. I'm not convinced.
He did play last game.
I'm not convinced that he's the best thing for the Blue Devils, quite frankly. We seem to win when he's not on the court.
It was a close game last time. It'll definitely be a close game again this time. Yeah, I don't know, man. Your Dukies might pull it out. I mean, they got a good squad.
Even then, we'll probably meet up in the ACC tournament. That's always how it shakes out.
I can tell you one thing. If we turn over the ball like we did last game at Miami, then there's no chance. Duke's gonna win. Joel Berry and offense just turned over the ball way too much. And Barry even had 31 points in that game, and they just still couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it, yeah. Butterfingers. Although it's, I'm not going to criticize. It's hard, like we're armchair guys. We're criticizing guys who are at the peak of their craft. It's very easy to do, but it's another thing to actually step on the court and try and perform.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely not taking that away from them. It's an awesome game to watch. It is March now, right around the corner, baby. March Madness.
Feel the madness setting in. All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please remember, if you are a Twitter user, you can follow us on Twitter at CriscoCast. You can find us on Facebook as well at Chrisco Industries. Please check out our YouTube channel if you're listening to the podcast. It's youtube.com/Crisco Brand Biscuits. Right now, Randy's only on one show on the channel, but we're going to diversify there. But there's lots of other funny videos. There's lots of other content, a couple other podcasts there, but definitely give it a check out. And I also want to say, if you enjoy what we do here and would like to support the channel and help us grow, consider donating on Patreon. Even if it's only $1 a month, that helps us pay for the server space and grow the channel. And if you don't want to donate, by all means, just tell your friends and family. That's the way that we can grow and how we can, like I said, keep this thing going. Before I forget, I do want to thank our patron, Adraxis. Thank you very much for your contribution. We greatly appreciate it, and we're looking forward to having you on a hangout here soon. So, Randy, is there anything that you would like to?
I just want to say thanks, too. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was really excited to see that love and support. So I know it was for our other show on Chrisco Cast, but that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you guys and happy for the channel.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. I'm really loving seeing the viewership for this show grow. And Randy, it's an absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure serving with you. I feel like we're the band at the end of Titanic. The quartet as they're sinking with the ship. Gentlemen, it's been an honor playing with you.
But I'm not your buddy, guy.
So, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for listening. And, for Randy Watkins, I'm Robert Joins, and this has been another wild episode of the R&R Sports Show / Sports Podcast / Sports Compendium / we didn't talk about Dave Grohl in this episode, so there's Dave Grohl.
No, Dave Grohl.
Now we've mentioned Dave Grohl, so we've met that. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we will see y'all next week on the R&R Sports Show. Bye.
Bye.